For 6 weeks, one of the richest families in New York knows their daughter is missing. They don't call the police. They don't tell the newspapers. They tell dinner guests she's resting in the country. Meanwhile, a maid quietly packs away her belongings, and a private detective combs Manhattan for a girl in a blue serge suit who walked out the door and never came back. By the time the family finally admits the truth, the trail that might have found Dorothy Arnold alive has gone stone cold. It's Saturday, December 12, 1910. Dorothy Arnold is 25 years old, the daughter of a wealthy perfume importer, living in a townhouse on East 79th Street, just off Fifth Avenue. Around 1:30 in the afternoon, she tells her mother she's going shopping. She needs a dress for her sister's debut. She's wearing a blue serge suit, a black velvet hat, a fur boa. She's carrying about $30, roughly $1,000 today. She walks south on Fifth Avenue. She stops at a bookstore near 27th Street and buys a box of chocolates. Outside, she runs into a friend, Gladys King. The two women talk for a few minutes on the sidewalk. Dorothy says she wants to walk through the park before heading home. She says goodbye. Gladys watches her turn and continue down Fifth Avenue towards Central Park. That is the last confirmed sighting of Dorothy Arnold. No struggle, no scream, no taxi driver, no doorman, no witness ever comes forward with anything more. A young woman from one of Manhattan's most prominent families simply stops existing on a sidewalk in broad daylight, and the city keeps moving around the space where she used to be. To understand why Dorothy Arnold's family reacted the way they did, you have to understand what kind of family this was. Her father, Francis Rose Arnold, made his fortune importing perfume and toiletries. The Arnolds summer in Maine, host formal dinners, move in the same circles as the city's oldest money. Dorothy graduated from Bryn Mawr College, unusual for a woman of her class in 1905. She wants to be a writer. She's submitted short stories to magazines under a pen name, and everyone has come back rejected. Her parents don't approve of the ambition. They want her married, settled, folded quietly into society. Some accounts suggest Dorothy had grown restless in the months before she disappeared, frustrated by rejection letters and by a life mapped out for her that she didn't choose. She was, by every description that survives her, intelligent, independent, and increasingly unhappy inside a house built on appearances. That last detail matters more than it seems. Because when Dorothy doesn't come home that Saturday night, her family's very first instinct isn't to call the police. It's to protect the appearance that nothing is wrong at all. Saturday night passes. Sunday passes. Dorothy's father tells the household staff she's visiting a friend. He hires a private investigator instead of contacting the New York police. Weeks go by like this. Guests are told Dorothy has a cold, that she's resting upstairs, that she's out of town. Some historians believe the Arnolds feared exactly what any Gilded Age family feared most: scandal. A missing daughter invites questions. Questions invite rumors. And rumors, in 1910, could ruin a family's standing for a generation, especially if the truth turned out to be something the family couldn't control, like an elopement or worse. So instead of police bulletins circulated within hours, Dorothy Arnold gets 6 weeks of silence. 6 weeks where any physical trace, any fresh witness memory, any chance to track a person still moving through the world slowly evaporates. It isn't until late January 1911 that the story finally breaks in the press, and when it does, it becomes a sensation. Front-page headlines across the country ask the same question: how does an heiress vanish from Fifth Avenue in broad daylight? And why did her own family wait so long to say a word? Once the story breaks, Francis Arnold spends what would today be millions of dollars trying to find his daughter. He hires the Pinkerton detective agency. He sends investigators to Europe, chasing a rumor that Dorothy fled to Italy or France. Tips pour in from across the country and overseas. A woman spotted in a convent in Boston, a body pulled from a river in Pennsylvania, a stranger resembling Dorothy seen boarding a ship. Investigators chase everyone. Everyone leads nowhere. Newspapers run her photograph for months. Reporters interview shopkeepers, doormen, cab drivers, anyone who might have seen her that Saturday afternoon. The family even consults psychics, a detail that says everything about how desperate the search had become. And through it all, the most obvious question sits mostly unexamined by the public eye, because the family works just as hard to control the story as they once worked to hide it. What if the answer wasn't in Europe at all? What if it was something Dorothy Arnold had been hiding for months, right there in Manhattan, from the very people now spending a fortune to find her? As investigators dig, one name surfaces that Dorothy's family had never mentioned publicly: George Griscom Jr., a man in his early 40s, wealthy, and, crucially, not free to marry. Letters later recovered suggest Dorothy and Griscom had been involved for roughly 2 years in a relationship kept from her parents. Some accounts describe the two meeting secretly in Boston not long before her disappearance. Griscom was in Italy when Dorothy vanished, and when investigators eventually reach him, his account of their relationship and his whereabouts raises more questions than it answers. Was Dorothy planning to leave with him, start a new life outside the world her family had built for her? Or was the relationship itself the source of something far darker, a complication that a young, unmarried woman in 1910 would have had almost no safe way to resolve? This is the piece of the story the Arnolds worked hardest to keep quiet, and the piece that historians still return to today because it's the closest thing anyone has to a motive. And it opens a door onto the darkest and most disputed theory of all. Over the decades, four theories have dominated the case. 1. Dorothy eloped with Griscom or fled on her own, choosing a new identity over the life waiting for her at home. No confirmed sighting ever supports it. 2. She was the victim of a botched illegal abortion, arranged in secret, her body disposed of by whoever performed it. A grim possibility investigators quietly pursued given the era's brutal underground medical practices. 3. She was murdered, possibly for the money in her purse or for reasons never uncovered. Her body never recovered in a city with 1,000 places to disappear. And 4, perhaps the most haunting, that she took her own life, weighed down by rejection letters, family pressure, and a relationship she couldn't resolve, and walked into Central Park Lake, or the Hudson River, where a body could vanish entirely in 1910 without the search technology we'd use today. Every theory has evidence pointing toward it. None has evidence proving it. Frances Arnold died in 1922, still searching. Dorothy's mother spent the rest of her life hoping for a letter that never came. No trace of Dorothy Arnold, not a body, not a confirmed sighting, not a single verified clue, has ever surfaced in over a century. Dorothy Arnold's case became one of the founding stories of American missing persons mythology, cited for decades as proof that wealth and privilege could buy silence, but never certainty. What really happened to her likely died with the people who knew her best. If you want more stories the history books left half-finished, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which unsolved case you think deserves a deeper look.